Colonel Martinez stared at the hospital security footage in disbelief, his coffee growing cold in his trembling hand. On the screen, a petite woman in civilian clothes moved with impossible precision, neutralizing 3 armed attackers in under 15 seconds, while shielding a wounded biker with her own body. "That's impossible," he whispered, rewinding the footage for the 4th time. Staff Sergeant Riley Luna has been filing paperwork for 2 years. She's never even requested combat training updates. His aide leaned closer to the monitor. "Sir, there's more. Approximately 120 Hells Angels just arrived at the hospital. They're not causing trouble. They're standing guard." Martinez felt his world shift. Want to know what happened when the military's most overlooked soldier revealed why an entire motorcycle club would ride through hell for her? Subscribe now. Staff Sergeant Riley Luna had perfected the art of invisibility within the sprawling corridors of Fort Bragg's administrative building. At 27, she possessed the kind of understated presence that allowed her to blend seamlessly into the background of military bureaucracy. Her auburn hair was always pulled back in a regulation bun, and her hazel eyes held a quiet intelligence that most officers overlooked entirely. Standing 5'4" in her combat boots, Riley had learned early that being underestimated was often an advantage. What her colleagues didn't know was that Riley Luna carried the DNA of a legend. Her grandfather, Master Sergeant Carlos El Lobo Luna, had been a Force Reconnaissance Marine who'd earned 3 Purple Hearts and a Navy Cross during Vietnam. More importantly, he'd spent Riley's childhood teaching her everything he knew about warfare, survival, and the art of reading people and situations with deadly accuracy. Growing up on her grandfather's remote ranch in the mountains of New Mexico, Riley had learned to shoot before she could properly ride a bicycle. El Lobo had constructed elaborate training courses throughout the wilderness, teaching his granddaughter advanced marksmanship, tactical movement, and combat psychology. By age 15, she could hit targets at 200 meters with iron sights, track movement patterns through dense forest, and assess threat levels with the instincts of a seasoned warrior. "Mija," he'd told her during one of their dawn training sessions, "the military will try to put you in a box. They'll see a small woman and think administration or communications. But you remember, the deadliest predators are often the ones that look harmless." Riley had enlisted immediately after high school, scoring perfect marks on every aptitude test and physical fitness assessment. Yet somehow, despite her exceptional qualifications, she'd been consistently assigned to support roles. Her requests for infantry training, sniper school, and special operations consideration had been politely declined, time and again. For 9 years, she'd watched less qualified male soldiers advance to combat positions while she processed paperwork and managed supply inventories. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent her days filing reports about equipment shortages and training deficiencies she could solve blindfolded. She'd memorized every weapons manual, studied every tactical doctrine, and maintained her grandfather's rigorous training regimen during her off-duty hours. But to Colonel Martinez and the rest of Fort Bragg's leadership, she remained invisible, just another competent administrator keeping the military machine running smoothly. Riley had developed a reputation for quiet efficiency and attention to detail. She arrived early, stayed late, and never complained about assignments. Her personnel file was spotless, her fitness reports consistently excellent, and her technical knowledge comprehensive. Yet she remained perpetually overlooked. Watching from the sidelines as opportunities passed to soldiers with half her capabilities, but twice her visibility, Colonel Roberto Martinez had commanded respect throughout his 22 years of distinguished military service. At 41, he carried himself with the confident bearing of an officer who'd earned his rank through combat leadership rather than political maneuvering. His chest displayed an impressive array of decorations: Bronze Stars, combat infantry badges and campaign ribbons from Iraq and Afghanistan. His graying temples and the thin scar along his jawline told stories of battles fought and won. Martinez represented the institutional thinking that had shaped the modern military, traditional, hierarchical, and deeply rooted in decades of established protocol. He believed in merit-based advancement, but his definition of merit was unconsciously filtered through conventional expectations. In his experience, the most effective soldiers were typically male, physically imposing, and vocally confident. He'd never deliberately discriminated, but his unconscious biases had been reinforced by years of seeing certain types of personnel succeed in combat roles. "I've got nothing against women in the military," he'd often explained to fellow officers. "Some of our best administrators and medical personnel are female. But when it comes to direct combat, there are physical and psychological factors that can't be ignored. It's not personal, it's practical." Riley Luna had been under his command for 18 months, during which time he'd formed a clear opinion of her capabilities. She was competent, reliable, and detail-oriented. Exactly the type of soldier the military needed for essential support functions. He'd approved her assignments to inventory management and personnel administration without a second thought, confident that her skills were being properly utilized. Martinez had never bothered to examine her full service record or training background. In his mind, her current position told the complete story. If she'd possessed exceptional combat capabilities, surely previous commanders would have recognized and developed them. The fact that she'd remained in administrative roles throughout her career simply confirmed his assessment. He prided himself on being a fair leader who judged soldiers by their performance rather than personal characteristics. Yet he'd never questioned why a soldier with perfect fitness scores and expert marksmanship ratings had been consistently assigned to desk duty. The system had made those decisions, and Martinez trusted the system implicitly. Fort Bragg's administrative complex hummed with its usual Tuesday morning efficiency as Riley Luna processed the weekly equipment requisition reports. Her desk occupied a corner of the vast open office space. Positioned near a window that provided a view of the main training grounds where soldiers conducted combat exercises she wasn't permitted to join. The irony of watching inferior marksmen practice drills she could perform blindfolded while she organized their ammunition requests wasn't lost on her. Riley's daily routine had become a carefully choreographed dance of bureaucratic precision. She arrived at 630, reviewed overnight priority messages, and systematically worked through supply requests, personnel transfers, and training documentation. Her computer screens displayed spreadsheets, tracking everything from rifle maintenance schedules to combat boot inventory levels. Each task was completed with meticulous attention to detail, earning her supervisor's praise and ensuring the base's administrative machinery functioned flawlessly. The morning had progressed normally until her personal phone buzzed with an unusual message. Jake Roadkill Sullivan, a Hells Angels member she'd befriended during her weekend volunteer work at a local veterans center, was texting from Fayetteville. "Riley, heading to VA hospital for Charlie's appointment. Weird vibe in town today. Cops everywhere, different crews moving around. Feels off." Riley had met Jake 6 months earlier while helping distribute meals to homeless veterans. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, she represented military order while he embodied the freedom of the open road. They'd developed a mutual respect based on shared service and commitment to helping fellow veterans. Jake had served 2 tours as an Army mechanic before finding brotherhood among the Angels, and his street-smart awareness had proven remarkably accurate in assessing potential threats. She was reviewing his message when the base emergency alert system activated, flooding the administrative building with the distinctive tone that meant immediate threat. Within seconds, Colonel Martinez's voice echoed through the intercom system. "All personnel, we have reports of armed individuals approaching the main gate. This is not a drill. Implement lockdown procedures immediately. Riley's training kicked in automatically, while her colleagues scrambled to secure classified documents and establish communication with their families. She was already accessing the base security network to assess the situation. Her clearance level allowed her to monitor real-time feeds from perimeter cameras and communication channels, revealing a coordinated attack by at least 6 heavily armed individuals who'd somehow penetrated the outer security checkpoints. The attackers weren't random criminals or terrorists. Their movement patterns, equipment, and tactical communication suggested professional military training. They advanced in coordinated fire teams, utilizing cover and concealment techniques that indicated extensive combat experience. More disturbing, they seemed to possess detailed knowledge of the base layout and security protocols. Colonel Martinez's voice crackled through the radio system. Security teams, Alpha and Bravo, respond to perimeter breach. All administrative personnel remain in secure positions until further notice. Riley could hear the tension in his voice. The recognition that this wasn't a typical security incident, but a sophisticated assault requiring immediate and decisive response. The situation deteriorated rapidly as Riley monitored multiple communication channels simultaneously. Security Team Alpha had engaged the attackers near the motor pool, but was taking heavy casualties. Team Bravo was attempting to flank the assault group, but had become pinned down behind inadequate cover. The base's quick reaction force was still mobilizing, leaving a critical gap in the defensive response. Through her computer access, Riley could see what the field commanders couldn't. The attackers' true objective wasn't the administrative building or weapons storage facility. They were systematically moving toward the medical complex, where wounded veterans, including several high-value personnel recovering from classified operations, received treatment. The timing wasn't coincidental. Someone had provided detailed intelligence about patient schedules and security vulnerabilities. Colonel Martinez's frustrated voice cut through the radio chatter. "Damn it! They're using our own defensive positions against us. They know our protocols better than some of my own soldiers." The realization that this was an inside job added urgency to an already desperate situation. Riley's phone buzzed again. Jake's message was brief but alarming. "Hospital under attack. Charlie and others trapped inside. I'm going in." The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The base attack was a diversion. The real target was the VA hospital where vulnerable veterans received care, and Jake was walking directly into a kill zone. Without hesitation, Riley stood from her desk and began moving toward the exit. Her supervisor, Master Sergeant Williams, called out sharply, "Riley, where do you think you're going? Lockdown means lockdown." "Sir, I have critical information about the attack pattern," she replied calmly, her voice carrying an authority that made Williams pause. "The base assault is a diversion. The primary target is the VA hospital, and there are civilians in immediate danger." Williams frowned, uncertain how to respond to the sudden transformation in Riley's demeanor. The quiet administrator who'd filed his reports for 2 years had been replaced by someone projecting confident, tactical awareness. "You need to stay here and let security handle this situation." Riley was already pulling on her gear, including the personal protection equipment she'd quietly maintained, despite her administrative assignment. "Master Sergeant, with respect, security doesn't know what they're walking into. I do, and I'm the only one in position to prevent a massacre." Riley's first stop was the base armory, where her access credentials and intimate knowledge of inventory procedures allowed her to acquire the equipment she needed. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she selected a Daniel Defense More Awone carbine, customizing it with attachments that would optimize performance for the tactical environment she expected to encounter. The muscle memory developed during countless hours, with her grandfather kicked in automatically as she verified the weapon's 0 and loaded specialized ammunition. Colonel Martinez tracked her movement through the security system and immediately dispatched MPs to intercept her. "What the hell does Luna think she's doing?" he demanded over the radio. "She's an administrator, not a combat soldier. Bring her back immediately." The MPs intercepted Riley at the vehicle depot as she prepared to commandeer a Humvee. "Ma'am, you need to return to the administrative building immediately," Sergeant Collins announced with professional authority. Colonel's orders. Riley turned to face the MPs, and they immediately noticed something had fundamentally changed. Her posture, her eye contact, even her voice carried a presence they'd never observed during her years of administrative duty. "Sergeant Collins, I need you to contact Colonel Martinez immediately and tell him Staff Sergeant Luna respectfully requests permission to respond to the VA hospital incident. Tell him I have tactical intelligence and capabilities he's unaware of." Collins hesitated, confused by the transformation. "Ma'am, I have orders to escort you back to—" "Sergeant," Riley interrupted, her voice carrying quiet authority. "In approximately 4 minutes, you're going to receive reports that the VA hospital is under coordinated assault by the same team that hit our perimeter. When that happens, you're going to realize that I'm the only person on this base who can prevent multiple civilian casualties. Now, are you going to help me save lives, or are you going to explain to families why their loved ones died while the one person who could help them was detained for following protocol?" The MPs exchanged uncertain glances as their radio crackled with an urgent transmission. All units, reports of active shooter situation at VA hospital. Multiple casualties reported. Repeat, active shooter at VA medical facility." Riley met Collins' eyes with steady confidence. "Sergeant, I need that vehicle, and I need it now." Within minutes, Riley was en route to the hospital. Her radio tuned to multiple emergency frequencies as she coordinated with local law enforcement and medical response teams. Colonel Martinez's voice cut through the communication traffic. "Luna, what the hell are you doing? You're not qualified for tactical response." "Sir, with respect, I'm probably the most qualified person available," Riley replied calmly as she navigated through traffic with tactical precision. "I have eyes on the situation and a plan to neutralize the threat with minimal additional casualties." Martinez's frustration was evident in his voice. "Staff Sergeant, you will return to base immediately." "That is a direct order." "Sir, I understand you believe I'm not capable of handling this situation," Riley responded as she approached the hospital perimeter. "But I need you to trust me for the next 30 minutes. Lives depend on it." Riley arrived at the VA hospital to find chaos barely contained by a thin perimeter of local law enforcement. 3 patrol cars were positioned behind inadequate cover, while officers attempted to establish communication with the attackers inside. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. The officers were outgunned and lacked the training necessary to assault a hardened position without massive casualties. She approached the incident commander, Lieutenant Rodriguez of the Fayetteville Police Department, who was coordinating the response from behind his vehicle. "Lieutenant, I'm Staff Sergeant Luna, Fort Bragg. I have tactical intelligence about the situation inside." Rodriguez looked skeptical as he took in Riley's appearance, a small woman in military uniform who seemed impossibly calm given the circumstances. "Ma'am, we appreciate any information, but this is a police matter now. We have SWAT en route." "Lieutenant, SWAT response time is 12 minutes minimum," Riley replied, checking her watch with practiced precision. "The hostages don't have 12 minutes. I have confirmed intelligence that there are at least 4 attackers inside with military-grade weapons and training. They're positioned to maximize casualties when your teams breach." As if to emphasize her point, automatic gunfire erupted from inside the hospital, followed by screams and the sound of breaking glass. Rodriguez's face went pale as he realized the attackers weren't just holding position, they were actively engaging targets. Riley's radio crackled with Jake's voice, transmitted on an emergency frequency. "Riley, if you're monitoring this channel, I'm trapped on the 3rd floor with 5 other veterans. Multiple shooters, professional operation, they're executing anyone who can't move fast enough. Charlie's been hit. We need immediate extraction." Rodriguez stared at Riley, with growing realization. "You know someone inside?" "I know the building layout, the attacker positions, and I have a civilian asset providing real-time intelligence," Riley replied, her voice carrying the confident precision of a trained operator. "Lieutenant, I can end this situation with minimal additional casualties, but I need your permission to proceed." Before Rodriguez could respond, Riley's phone buzzed with a message from Jake that made her blood run cold. "They're setting charges. This isn't a hostage situation. It's a demolition job. Everyone inside dies in 15 minutes. Riley looked at Rodriguez with deadly seriousness. "Lieutenant, they're going to blow the building. If you want to save lives, you need to let me do what I'm trained for." Rodriguez hesitated for a critical moment before nodding grimly. "What do you need?" Riley was already moving, her mind automatically calculating angles, distances, and tactical considerations with the precision her grandfather had drilled into her since childhood. "I need your officers to maintain their positions and prevent anyone from leaving through the main exits. Do not attempt to breach until you receive my all-clear signal." She approached the hospital's service entrance with movements that would have impressed any special operations instructor. Her weapon handling demonstrated years of advanced training as she cleared corners and assessed threats with fluid precision. The muscle memory developed through countless hours of practice took over, allowing her to move through the building like a predator who'd spent years studying her prey. Riley's first contact with the attackers came on the 2nd floor, where she encountered 2 men in tactical gear, attempting to set explosive charges near the building's structural supports. Her engagement was swift and decisive, 2 precise shots at a distance of 47 meters, both center mass, both instantly neutralizing threats without alerting other attackers to her presence. Jake's voice whispered through her earpiece. "Riley, 3rd floor, northwest corner. 2 more setting charges near the veterans ward. I count at least 15 civilians in the kill zone." Riley acknowledged with a soft double click and began her ascent, moving with the silent precision that had made her grandfather famous among reconnaissance Marines. Her tactical awareness allowed her to anticipate the attackers' movements, positioning herself for maximum advantage while minimizing exposure to return fire. The 3rd floor engagement required split-second timing and impossible accuracy. Riley identified her targets through a doorway gap of less than 6 inches, calculating the bullet trajectory needed to neutralize both threats without risking civilian casualties behind them. Her shots were fired within 0.7 seconds of each other, both finding their marks at a distance of 31 meters through limited visibility. The hospital fell silent except for the distant sounds of approaching sirens and Riley's calm voice on the radio. "All clear. 4 threats neutralized. Explosive devices secured. Medical assistance required for civilian casualties on the 3rd floor." Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Staff Sergeant Luna, this is Rodriguez. Status report. Sir, building is secure. I need EOD to handle the explosive devices. And I have multiple wounded civilians, requiring immediate medical attention." Riley replied as she began providing first aid to Jake and the other veterans who'd been trapped. Jake looked at her with a mixture of amazement and respect that she'd seen countless times in her grandfather's eyes. "Riley, where the hell did you learn to do that?" Before she could answer, Colonel Martinez's voice cut through the radio traffic. "Luna, this is Martinez. I'm en route to your location. We need to talk." Within minutes, The hospital was swarming with emergency responders, military police, and medical personnel. Riley had returned to her quiet demeanor, efficiently coordinating with various agencies while ensuring the wounded received proper care. To the arriving officers, she appeared to be nothing more than a competent administrator helping manage the crisis response. Colonel Martinez arrived as Riley was giving her statement to Rodriguez and federal investigators. His expression reflected complete bewilderment as he tried to reconcile the mild-mannered staff sergeant he thought he knew with the tactical expert who'd single-handedly neutralized a professional assault team. "Staff Sergeant Luna," he began formally, "I believe we need to discuss your background and qualifications." Riley stood at attention, her military bearing impeccable, despite having just engaged in combat. "Sir, I respectfully request the opportunity to explain the circumstances that led to my current assignment status." Martinez studied her for a long moment, seeing her clearly for the first time in 18 months. "Staff Sergeant, based on what I've witnessed today, I believe there's been a significant oversight in how we've utilized your capabilities. I'm immediately recommending you for advanced tactical training and reassignment to a position that better matches your skill set." Rodriguez interrupted their conversation with information that explained the broader picture. "Colonel, we've identified the attackers. All 4 were former military contractors with connections to a private security firm that's been under federal investigation. Someone paid them specifically to target this hospital and eliminate witnesses to previous operations. The investigation would later reveal that Riley's quick thinking and decisive action had prevented not just multiple civilian casualties, but the destruction of evidence crucial to exposing a network of illegal activities involving defense contractors and corrupt military officials. That evening, as Riley sat in the hospital cafeteria, completing her paperwork, she reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. Her grandfather's training had finally found its purpose, proving his belief that preparation and opportunity would eventually intersect in meaningful ways. Colonel Martinez approached her table, his entire demeanor transformed by the day's events. "Riley, I owe you an apology. Actually, I owe you much more than that. I've spent months working with you, and never bothered to look beyond my own assumptions about who you were and what you could contribute." Riley looked up from her reports with a slight smile. "Sir, the military taught me patience. Sometimes, the right opportunity just takes time to develop." Martinez sat down across from her, his expression serious. "I've been reviewing your complete service record, the parts I should have examined years ago. Your grandfather's reputation, your training scores, your continuous requests for combat assignments. How many other soldiers like you are sitting in administrative positions because commanders like me can't see past our own prejudices?" "Sir, with respect, I think there are probably quite a few," Riley replied thoughtfully. "But everyone's path is different. Maybe I needed those years of administrative experience to understand how the military really works before I could be effective in a tactical role." Outside the hospital windows, they could see an impressive sight. Nearly 120 motorcycles lined up in formation, their riders standing in silent tribute. The Hells Angels had ridden from across 3 states when word spread that one of their own had been saved by a soldier who'd risked everything to help veterans in need. Jake approached their table, moving slowly due to his injuries but insisting on personally thanking Riley. "You know, some of those guys out there are former military too," he said, gesturing toward the parking lot. "They've been talking about you all evening. Word is getting around about what you did today." Martinez shook his head in amazement. "Riley, I have to ask, have you ever been underestimated like this before?" Riley considered the question carefully. "Sir, I think most people get underestimated at some point. The key is using that underestimation as an advantage rather than letting it become a limitation." My grandfather taught me that the most dangerous opponents are often the ones no one sees coming. As they talked, Riley realized that her story would resonate with countless others who'd been overlooked, dismissed, or relegated to roles that didn't match their capabilities. In organizations everywhere, there were probably people whose true potential remained hidden beneath assumptions and institutional biases. Have you ever discovered someone whose abilities far exceeded your first impressions? Riley asked Martinez. Because I think that happens more often than we realize. We just need to be better at looking beyond surface appearances and really understanding what people bring to the table. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. After today, I'm going to make sure we review every personnel file in my command. There might be other soldiers whose talents we're not recognizing or developing properly. The conversation continued as they discussed broader implications of the day's events. Riley's actions had not only saved lives, but exposed significant corruption within military contractor networks. Her unique combination of technical expertise, tactical training, and administrative knowledge had made her perfectly suited to identify and respond to threats that others might have missed. Share this story if you believe that excellence can emerge from unexpected places, Riley said to Martinez as they prepared to leave. And remember that the quiet professional in the next cubicle might be capable of extraordinary things if given the right opportunity. As they walked toward the exit, Martinez reflected on how dramatically his perspective had changed in a single day. Riley, I want you to know that what you did today will change how I evaluate and develop every soldier under my command. You've taught me that assuming we know someone's capabilities based on their current position is not just wrong, it's dangerous. The motorcycle engines outside roared to life in coordinated tribute, their sound carrying across the hospital grounds as 120 riders prepared to escort Riley home. It was an honor guard that no military protocol had ever anticipated, but one that perfectly captured the respect she'd earned through her actions. Thanks for reading this story about how hidden talent and preparation can intersect with opportunity in the most unexpected ways. If you enjoyed learning about Riley Luna's journey from overlooked administrator to tactical hero, remember that similar stories of underestimated excellence are happening all around us. Sometimes the most capable people are the ones who've learned to work quietly and let their actions speak louder than their words. If you like stories about military service, unexpected heroes, and the power of proper training meeting critical moments, you'll want to hear about other veterans whose true capabilities only became apparent when everything was on the line. Hit subscribe to discover more accounts of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when it matters most.